As we're wrapping up this year, because as unbelievable as it is, it's already the end of November 2025 and we're marching towards the last month of this year, I started to go a bit into reflection, not just about work in general, how it's been going, how the year was with the family, but also to be very frank about how I used to work at the beginning of the year and how this has changed. And of course, given this wonderful podcast, I'm also thinking about my usage of AI tools. And this will be the topic of today. Abba and me will be discussing in our podcast, Who Do You Want to Be? How does AI change the way we work? And how dependent are we becoming on it? Welcome, Abba. Very happy to have you here with me this morning. How are you?
So great to be here. And I can't believe that this is the end of the year. And I feel like so much has changed about how everyone is using AI and how everyone is communicating about AI. And I think our conversations now are so different to the conversations we were having at the beginning of the year. So I'm super interested to get into this with you.
It's true. It's been a very, very different point we started off with. And I remember in our very first episodes, I also asked you questions about how do I actually use ChatGPT and what is it really for? And then how far can I trust it? And I remember that I was very hesitant about using it. But now I have really have to admit it became my go-to. So whenever I'm looking for ideas, whenever I'm looking to get started with writing something, for example, I would just quickly go to ChatGPT because, it's one of my bookmarks anyway. So it's just one click away, literally. And then I just type in whatever I need to know. And I feel that ChatGPT got to know me quite well as well. So it knows by now what I'm looking for. It knows what I've been working on. It's connecting the dots. And it became, I would almost call it a very reliable partner for me. But I'm also wondering, is that something that I really want it to be for me? Do I want to have more distance between ChatGPT and me, or am I actually happy to rely on it that much? I don't know in how far this year has changed for you, Abba, when it comes to using chat or other tools, of course.
I think for me, maybe it's a bit different because it's also what I do for a living. Like I teach people how to use AI. So I have been living and breathing it perhaps more than I would have if I wasn't teaching this. And I feel like it's totally replaced the internet, right? Like when the internet came out, we had this kind of revolution and we used to think, how did we ever work without the internet? Right? Like how did we work without Google? And now the shift is how do we work without a tool like ChatGPT or any of the large language models, Copilot, Gemini, Grok, Claude? And we're seeing a societal shift in the way we do everything. And just like the internet, ChatGPT and other such tools have their pros and cons. And it really comes down to how do you want to use it. Now, what does AI mean, right? Artificial intelligence is the ability of machines to do human tasks, right? So this is like a very broad, simple definition of AI. And the fact that now a tool like the internet is basically taking over so many tasks that we're doing because the internet couldn't do our tasks. It was literally a research partner or an information provider. We still had to do all the processing, we still had to do all the work, we still had to do everything ourselves. But with ChatGPT now, we don't. And I think it's very good of you to ask yourself how much do you want to be connected to this and how much you don't, because that really, at the end of the day, is going to determine how you use these tools. There's using these tools as if they are a partner and they can really augment and amplify everything you have to offer. And then there's using these tools as a crutch, as something we're so over reliant and dependent on. And we spoke about this in an earlier episode. Are we going to just surrender everything we do to these tools so that we no longer have any value to add? And this is a real fear. So, but I do think people who don't continue to add value of their own mind, their own knowledge, their own life experience will be weeded out of the system.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it's been interesting also to see people around me, how they started to use ChatGPT more and more, and how at work it became a new normal as well. I remember one of our first episodes as well, Abba, was about how openly can you use ChatGPT at work? And that back then, people were a bit hesitant to actually confess that they would be using ChatGPT because back then, it was more around, can't you think for yourself? Why do you have to use AI? You should be able to, find the solutions all on your own. And it was exactly that understanding with one of the clients that I work with. It's a small company and I do HR consulting for them. And at the beginning of the year, it was really that people try to camouflage when they use ChatGPT. Some of us were able to see, no, no, this is ChatGPT because, the way that it's written, it's understandable. It's obvious that it would be ChatGPT. And just yesterday, or a couple of days ago, there was an email circulated in that organization and it was sent by a director. And the director said in that email, well, I asked Chatty. So Chatty is the nickname for ChatGPT, which I found quite amazing as well, that AI tool now has a nickname as well. Chatty says this. And then it was a direct copy paste out of ChatGPT content. And then this was the foundation for the ongoing conversation. So as you said, there was a huge shift within that organization alone when it comes to how normal is it and how acceptable is it to use AI generated content for work. And I bet that it's not the only organization that has been going or is currently going through a change like this.
No, I think globally, all organizations are going through change because either they're implementing AI officially or everyone's using it unofficially. I think we just have to assume that everyone's using ChatGPT and not just in work, also in personal life. Like there is not a single person I speak to who doesn't refer to ChatGPT when I talk to them. In fact, my daughter was telling me, she's 7, that one of her classmates loves ChatGPT. And I was like, and she can't pronounce ChatGPT properly. She always says ChatGPT. And I'm like, well, why does he love it? And she couldn't explain that. But, I mean, her classmate is also 7. So what are the kids talking about? You know, we were listening to a song in the car yesterday, and it was a very famous song that they know, but it was in a different language. And we were trying to guess what language it was. And she's like, why don't we just ask ChatGPT? So I mean, this she's 7. So, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether even my gym trainers are like, so I don't need any friends anymore, I just speak to ChatGPT. This is the norm. I went to an exhibition and there was a machine at the exhibition and I didn't find anybody to help me to tell me what the machine was, and there was a guy standing there very observant of the machine, so I assumed he knew what it was. And I said, can you tell me what this machine does? And he's like, take a photo, put it into ChatGPT, and you'll get all the information you need. And like, again, he didn't even want to communicate with me and take a minute to explain to me what this machine was. He's like, just let ChatGPT do it. So, like, it's amazing in one way, but it's also pretty scary. Like, I just hope that we as a society are able to really take this with a pinch of salt and accept what it is. It's just a machine. It's just zeros and ones being spit out. It's pattern recognition. It's just giving us the next best word. It really doesn't know anything else. So I just hope that we are able to be aware of this, because another thing I'll tell you, I've started talking to ChatGPT, and I didn't do this enough before, but now it talks back to you. And you can choose the voice it talks in, you can choose the age, you can choose the style of talking and all of that. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It is like I have a friend. So we are going through an entire societal shift, just like we did on the internet when the internet revolution happened. But now this is just happening way, way faster. So again, it comes down to, and the reason why we started this podcast, as we enter this AI first world, who do we want to be?
So now that you've talked to ChatGPT and you had that conversation, Abba, is that something where you say that was so great, I would do that again? Or would you say, no, that was a one time only for me just to
I would
understand
do
what it's
totally,
like?
sorry to interrupt you. I would totally do that again.
How is it different from talking to a human?
First of all, you may not have a human to talk to in the moment you want to talk to someone, right? You have to maybe wait for your husband to get home, or wait till you can speak to someone. People don't pick up the phone anymore just to call to have like a random chat, right? Like this is not happening. People are busy. No one picks up their phone, right? Or you have to schedule a call, or you leave a voice note on WhatsApp, and maybe you'll get a reply in a day. So I get it, right? Like, and I was having a very silly, superficial conversation with ChatGPT, but it really helped me decide in that moment whether I should go to the gym or not. It was ridiculous. It's a ridiculous conversation because I was feeling a little bit under the weather. I wasn't sure if it was an allergy or if I was coming down with something. And I had this ridiculous conversation because I wanted to decide if it's wise for me to go to the gym or not. And obviously, no one has the time to have this conversation. I'm not going to ask a doctor. I'm not going to ask my gym instructor. I'm not going to waste my time with my husband asking this ridiculous question and debating whether I should go to the gym or not. So I had it with ChatGPT and he gave me some very good advice. And he said, yeah, don't go, take rest. And one day of rest is not going to affect your gym routine. And that's what I needed to hear. And I even said to it, do you think I'm making an excuse for not going to the gym? And he's like, no, I don't think you are because you genuinely sounds like you're not doing very well. So
It's
anyway,
pretty amazing.
it really is. It is, and yeah, it's amazing as it is scary.
Yeah. I mean, I remember about that we had an episode about that as well, in how far ChatGPT and, for example, also social media platforms would completely work towards our confirmation bias, meaning that we would only get fed information that we want to receive anyways, and it would not necessarily challenge us unless directly asked to challenge us. So just in this example with your gym routine, if you don't mind picking that up, I wonder in how far, and it's probably going a bit too far, but I'm wondering in how far you basically gave ChatGPT hints to give you that comforting answer and say, better stay at home, take a day of rest, rather than telling you, come on, Abba, don't exaggerate it. You'll be fine. Go to the gym. It's important for you. So in how far does it feed our confirmation bias, even in conversations like that? I wonder. And then if you would tend towards ChatGPT to look for an answer with that for that debate that you have inside of you, and how far is it giving you the answer that you want to hear rather than the answer that you need to hear?
So I think as the versions get better and better, they are putting a lot of emphasis on making them more neutral. There's a
Mm.
huge emphasis on making the tools neutral as much as possible. But you're right. I mean, I don't know. You can instruct the tool to be neutral and not just agree with you for the sake of agreeing with you. I mean, these tools are built to help you. So they will always try and help you in the best way. And they are trained on, the best of human behavior. Obviously, they've not been trained to be bad to you or be nasty with you, right? Although I have heard that they can be. But I do think it's a reflection of how you communicate because it does pick up how you communicate with the tool and it kind of gives it back. So again, it goes back to understanding how the tools work so that whenever you're using the tool, you are taking it with a pinch of salt. Because like you said, yeah, if it's just always agreeing with me, then I'm talking to it just for someone to agree with me. And what's the value in that, right? So they are trying to move away from that to ensure that you are getting the most out of it. But it's all about how you're instructing it and the information you're giving it. So in this gym example, I gave it all the information. Like I said, how I'm feeling. I woke up tired. I've been sneezing all day. I have taken an antihistamine. My body feels fine though, but my nose is running. But this has been last week I had a cold. So I'm not sure, and I got better from the cold. So I'm not sure if this is my cold coming back or is this an allergy attack because I do have allergy issues. So I gave it a lot of information. And it did say, you know what? I can totally understand the confusion because it's not uncommon for a cold to then come back as an allergy or a bit of a mix of both if you have allergy issues. So it was very good, but then I gave it all the information. If I had just said to it, I should go to the gym, but I don't feel like going to the gym. Do you think I should go to the gym? maybe it would have given me another answer, So again, it goes down to how are you communicating with these tools? Do the tools have the information they need to help you in the right way?
Mm-hmm.
It actually even asked me, do you want my advice on what you should be doing, or do you want to just talk this through?
Wow, that's very advanced. Okay.
Like a coach, right? Do
Yeah,
you want my
that's true.
advice, or do you want to just discuss this? And I'm just like, yeah, I want your advice.
But this is
Um,
interesting when you say advice as well, because you just shared with us that you gave it all of the information around, let's call it your medical situation. So it's interesting that Chat gives you feedback such as it's not common that you are showing this the symptoms in the combination of cold and allergy. In how far can we trust that information? I mean, Chat has, of course, received lots of input, I believe, from medical staff, scientists, and all of this, but still, and how far can we trust when Chat tells us, oh, better stay at home? That just in this example, that would in fact be the best medical recommendation. And if you take that further into, let's say you're really sick and you're looking at how to cure yourself, would that be something that we can afford to rely on?
I don't think so. I think
Hmm.
it's very good for having a conversation and for maybe doing your research, or helping you do your research to understand what you've got and what you need to do. But taking any action, and obviously in my case, it was a very superficial thing. It was just a cold and allergy. So it didn't really matter. But obviously, if you have something more serious, I don't think you can rely on a tool like ChatGPT. And you shouldn't, because ChatGPT doesn't know who you are, doesn't understand your nuances. It's not a doctor, even though it's trained on amazing information. And my dad is a doctor. And my dad's gone through a series of tests recently, and he's used Grok actually to help him do his research on a few things that he wanted to dig deeper. But if you look at the prompts that he's using, because he's a doctor, he speaks to the tool like a doctor.
Hmm.
And rather than him doing research in the academic journals, he just uses the tool to give him processed information, but he can vet it because he's a doctor. And he's told me that he's amazed at the output that he's getting from a tool like Grok in terms of medical recommendations. He's absolutely amazed. And this is a doctor telling a doctor. Having said that, obviously you should not rely on these tools for medical help. You know how when you're sick, what we used to do before is just go to Google and Google our symptoms, right? Just to understand what do we have. And then we would go down this road of doom because we have a headache and it's telling us you might have a tumor.
Yeah.
Now we can have a similar conversation with a tool like ChatGPT, and it's likely to process the information better so that you're not necessarily going down this path of doom,
Hmm.
because it's processing the information and giving it to you.
Yeah.
Again, pros and cons. But no, I don't think we should trust it for life situations, for sure. Whether it's medical reasons, whether it's complex decisions. I did a training the other day, and I gave this analogy where ChatGPT and all such tools are very good at solving complicated problems, which means a problem that has a clear solution. So X plus Y is Z, but maybe that there are some complications in getting that X and Y. But what it's not good at is complex problems, where there's complexity that is hard to explain and hard for it to understand. So if you think of it that way, it can help you do a complicated problem. So, for example, if you're having 30 people over for dinner and they're your family, and one is vegan, one is gluten-free, one is, allergic to nuts, one is, I don't know what, and it's a complicated problem to plan a menu, but ChatGPT can do that very well. But if you ask ChatGPT, okay, where should everyone sit so that we don't have any drama at the table, right? It's a complex problem. It's not able to solve that because it doesn't know the nuances And I think if you start recognizing these things, you'll start using ChatGPT for complicated problems so that you can use your energy for complex problems.
That's a great differentiation. Yeah, complicated and complex. I absolutely agree. I mean, ultimately, there will always be a certain extent of knowledge that ChatGPT can't have when it comes to the inner workings of our brain. How do we actually really connect the dots? How well do we know our relatives in that example? We know very well that that uncle really doesn't get along with that aunt, so I will put the biggest possible distance between them. That's nothing that ChatGPT could know. And I find that, in all honesty, comforting that
Yeah.
ultimately we won't be able to completely silently surrender to ChatGPT or any other AI tool, because there will always be bits and pieces that we have to rely on ourselves for.
And we have to recognize that
Mhm.
because it is very easy to just rely on it because it makes us lazy. It does make us lazy. It's true. It's making us lazy. ChatGPT is making us lazy. And it's very easy to fall into that trap. So there's one thing that you take away from this episode is that don't let it make you lazy because that's the beginning of the end of any value you can offer to whatever you're doing, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, your day-to-day life, whatever that is in the use of these tools. This has been a very interesting chat on how large language models have changed the way we're doing things, and we're seeing a societal shift in our interaction with this tool. And really, we need to remember why we're using these tools and ensure that when we're using them, we're really using them to amplify what we have and not rely on them like a crutch in a way that we're over dependent on them so that we are no longer adding any value that we can. So use these tools with intention. They're there to help you, but always be wary of what they can and cannot do. So we hope you found that useful, and we'll see you again next week.